Today we're going to show you how to remove a bushing from a rear frame on a Honda Ruckus. We're going to do both sides because I have to send this out for powder coating on the E-Ruck build. So this is the E-Ruck part 2 video. We're going to film today's video at Wingman Garage. It's located in Wadsworth, Ohio, run by an awesome gentleman named Aaron. It's a great place. You can come here, rent a lift, rent tools. I should say it's all included. You basically rent the time for a lift. And he's got all the tools necessary. He helps if you ever need anything. But yeah, definitely check him out if you're local here, Wadsworth, Ohio. It's a great service. So let's get to it. So there are two ways that you can do this. One is with nuts and bolts and washers, which is relatively easy. All that you need is a 13/16 Harbor Freight Pittsburgh socket. Or you can additionally use, if you don't have Harbor Freight sockets, a Craftsman 21mm. They both have the same outer diameter that we're going to want in order to press this bushing out. So you can see here, this is the bushing that would go inside that we have to remove. In our case, I have to remove it for powder coating. So that is the same diameter, slightly less, that will allow us to push it through and out. So you'll want to take the socket that you have and place it over top of the inside of that bushing. You'll notice that there's a slight overlap in the bushing. So you want that to be perfectly center, such that when you start to tighten that, it will push it through the tube and out the other side. So from there, once that's in, you would put your long bolt or all thread into the top. And then you'll want to have a wide washer, or in our case, I'll use a couple of washers to press on the outside here. That allows us to have the force to push that back through. So you would just put all that on and then tighten your nut. And then once you tighten this, it will effectively force it through. If you use a WD-40 or some sort of lubricant, that would help a ton in pushing that out. You don't need it, but it definitely helps a ton. Additionally, this way, if you do use a nut and bolt, will take a lot longer. Reason being is because on our press that we're going to use in the video, it has bushings or bearings on each side that allows the washers to freely spin. The problem with this is because it's static. Once you start tightening this socket is going to try to move around. So if you are using the nut and bolt option, you want to make sure to keep that nice and steady, centered in the middle, and then just keep cranking it down and it'll eventually force it through. So this is how it should look if you're doing the nut and bolt way. Again, this is 3/16 all thread, or you can use a 3/16 bolt in about 4.5 to 5 inches, a 21mm socket, or that's a 21mm Craftsman socket, or a 13/16 Pittsburgh socket. And this is exactly how it should look. You would then press that through on each side. It's definitely going to be a lot easier to do when the engine is off the bike, or if you have the frame off the bike, it makes it way easier. If you wanted to rent your own tools rather than using the nut and bolt, or you can buy it as well. I believe this kit only retails for $60 to $80. It's still going to be cheaper than going to a shop. They normally charge $40 to $50 a side to press these bushings for you. So this is basically what you'd get. It's the same thing as your nut and bolt that we have previously, that 3/16. The only difference is it's going to be a lot longer because you can use it for cars and other applications. And you also have the bearings on here, so you can see this will freely move with the other side not. So it makes it a lot easier to press in the socket or whatever sleeve you're trying to press. So we will go ahead and use this in our video, but again, you can use the nut and bolt along with the socket as well and do the same thing. It saves yourself a couple of dollars. I just like to have the extra tools. It's nice to have later on if you need it for anything else. If you are going to go the press way, you have the long shaft, which I have, and then you have the socket that you're going to use to press the bushing forward, and then a big washer, or in this case I just used the big puck that came in the kit to help receive that bushing that way. And you're just going to go ahead and tighten this all down. Once you tighten this, it's going to go ahead and force that socket in. It always is a good idea to go ahead and put some WD-40 on that socket. It's gonna help with just make it move through that bushing a little bit easier and that metal there. So all that we're gonna do from there is go ahead and tighten this down. And you'll see as we start to tighten, the bushing is gonna slowly push through. Start to see the socket just go ahead and disappear on me, and that's because it's getting forced into the frame itself, which is what we want. That's how we're going to push that bushing all the way through. Again, you can do the same thing if you're going to use the nut and bolt way. It just takes quite a bit longer. The nice thing, if you do go to rent tools from AutoZone or Advanced or anything like that, they do a full refund when you return the tool, so you're not actually out the money. Again, you're going to save a lot of money versus sending it off to a shop to do. So from there, it's pretty much bottomed out, so we're going to go ahead and loosen this. So now you can see that bushing, or that socket, is stuck in the frame, which is what we want because we're pushing that bushing out. So in there, if you can see that, the bushing is now pretty much level with the outside of the frame. If you look on the other side, that is the outside of the frame, so you can see how far deep it is. So we pushed it out. Now all we have to do is extract that socket. In order to extract that socket out, all you have to do is place that on the bottom. So in this case, I'll do that overhang off the bench. And we're gonna put an extension into that socket, and we're just gonna give it a few persuasive hits with a hammer, and that'll pop it right out of the bottom. It's important to note that whether you're using a nut and bolt, which is going to be the cheaper option. Basically it goes through like that, with you're going to use this socket as well, and then some washers on the back side to help receive it. It's going to be the same thing as using this tool. It's important to note that we want to make sure that this socket is completely in line with that bushing. What I mean by that is that if you look at these two, they're the same diameter. You want to make sure that they're lined up perfectly, because if you have this socket such that it's going to be like this, it's going to end up pushing on the frame on the side and not pushing this bearing or the bushing through. So once you have your all thread or your nut and bolt in place, you're going to want to go ahead and tighten those down, and that's going to press the socket into the frame, thus removing that bushing. So you can see here, it's already starting to press in. It just takes some time. You're going to want to use some WD-40 or some sort of lubricant to help push that through, because the socket will try to hang up on the frame itself. And you can see there, this is already loose, which means that more than likely that bushing went ahead and popped through. So we're going to take off this nut. And see that bushing's right there. Again, WD-40 is going to be your friend on this. That'll push it right through. And then in order to push this back in, all that you're going to do is lube it up the same way we took it out, and then press it in the same way, or opposite I should say. So instead of pressing it this way, you're going to want to press this inward, because if you look on the inside of the frame, which it's going to be kind of hard to show, but the inside of this frame is slightly tapered in. It's really hard to show, but because of that taper, you want to make sure that you push the bushing into it, so in from the outside, because of that. Otherwise, you're going to kind of fight it trying to push it out like we just did.